This episode is brought to you by Skillshare. Get 2 months of Skillshare free and learn new skills by using the link in the description. It's a well-known fact that we're safer traveling in the sky than we are traveling on land, or so they say. When disaster strikes in the sky, the results are often, as we shall see, devastating. Air disasters are headline news, and so they should be. What could be worse than a dream vacation turning into a nightmare when the controls fail in the cockpit and the cabin suddenly lunges towards terra firma? Or sometimes you're not even safe from air disaster while on the ground. A cargo plane simply drops from the sky into the crowded market where you were peacefully shopping for groceries. What happens when your passenger jet strays into military airspace and missiles start flying past the passenger windows? Here, for your viewing pleasure, is a list of some of the deadliest airline disasters ever on this episode of the Infographics Show, the top 10 worst airplane accidents. Number 1. On September 1st, 1983, Korean Airlines Flight 007 departed Anchorage, Alaska, bound for Seoul. At some point during the flight, the plane strayed off course and veered towards the Soviet Union. Relations between the US and the Soviet Union weren't peachy at the time, and this proved to be one of the more tense points of the Cold War. As the plane steered off course towards the Soviet Union, things became critical. With Soviet missile tests scheduled for that day, the Soviets must have been feeling trigger-happy and paranoid. As the flight entered their airspace, it was shot down, killing all 269 passengers on board. The Soviets later admitted they misidentified the aircraft for a spy plane, which is understandable considering the political tensions and the weapons testing at the time. Number 2. American Airlines Flight 191 was doomed from the start. The engine broke down during takeoff at O'Hare Airport in 1979, taking a large section of the wing with it. The aircraft rolled and crashed into a field, taking out a nearby trailer park, killing 2 bystanders in the process. All 273 passengers and crew were killed in this deadly disaster. Number 3. Iran Air Flight 655 was heading from Tehran to Dubai on July 3, 1988, when disaster struck. The Airbus A300 was destroyed by an SM-2MR surface-to-air missile fired from a United States missile cruiser. All 290 passengers, including 66 children, were killed with no survivors. The flight was shot down over the Persian Gulf during the Iran-Iraq War when forces mistook it for an Iranian F-14A Tomcat flying towards them. Iran remains firm in its belief that this was no accident and was in fact an international crime. Number 4. Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 was involved in a similar incident over eastern Ukraine when the Boeing 777-200 flying from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur was targeted and shot down close to the Russian border. All 298 passengers were killed in the accident. Some airlines had already begun to avoid the Ukrainian airspace following the Crimean crisis in early 2014, but some carriers, such as Malaysia Airlines, had yet to change their routes. Number 5. The Air Africa incident at Ndolo Airport in the Democratic Republic of Congo was one of the most deadly for people on the ground. In 1996, an overloaded Air Africa cargo aircraft struggled to take off, but just kept rolling at speed, overshooting the runway. The flight, which was possibly overloaded with weapons, failed to reach the correct speed for takeoff. With increased speed, the plane crashed into a marketplace and exploded into a ball of flame, killing between 225 and 348 people and injuring some 500 others. This takes the dubious prize of being the flight to have caused the largest number of non-passenger deaths caused by the accidental crash of an aircraft. Number 6. Air India Flight 182 occurred on June 23, 1985, and was deemed the deadliest aviation terror attack at the time. The Air India Boeing 747, bound from Toronto to Sahar International Airport, crashed off the coast of Ireland following the explosion of a device placed in the cargo hold by a Mr. M. Singh, thought to be of the Sikh extremists Babar Khalsa. A second device, intended to explode simultaneously on another flight, went off early in the terminal building at Narita Airport, Japan. Number 7. Flying from Istanbul to London via Paris, Turkish Air Flight 981 had an unusually large number of passengers on board. As they flew over Meuse, France in 1974, passengers heard a muffled explosion, followed by a rush of air as the cargo doors separated from the plane. Pilots fought to control the plane for just over a minute before crashing into the Ermenonville forest, killing all 346 passengers. At the time, this was the deadliest plane crash in aviation history. Number 8. In 1996, a Kazakhstan modified military plane carrying 27 passengers and 10 crew descended to land at Delhi Airport. The crew was cleared by air traffic control to descend to 4600, but due to their limited English, they didn't realize they were to stay at that altitude. They kept descending and collided into a Saudi Arabian passenger airplane. The tail of the plane cut through the other's wing, and the Saudi Arabian passenger Boeing crashed, killing all 349 on board. All passengers and crew aboard the Kazakhstani plane were also killed either during the crash landing or later on at the hospital. Number 9. 520 passengers were killed on Japan Airlines Flight 123 in 1985. Shortly after the flight took off, the rear bulkhead failed, tearing off the rudder and destroying the hydraulic system, meaning that the pilot had zero control of the flight apart from the use of thrust. The pilot attempted to return to Tokyo, then he tried to land at an army base, but the plane would refuse to be controlled before it crashed into mountains. 4 people survived the crash and the night that followed. It is unknown how many of the 520 dead were killed on the initial impact of the crash. Search parties found the wreckage and the 4 remaining survivors the next day. Finally, number 10. The 1977 Tenerife disaster claimed 583 lives with 61 survivors. Following a terrorist bombing at Gran Canaria International Airport, flights including KLM 4805 and Pan Am 1736 were diverted to Los Rodeos. The much smaller airport quickly became congested with parked aircraft blocking the taxiway and forced departing aircraft to use the runway. The weather conditions, which were harsh with patches of dense fog across the airfield, prevented aircraft from seeing one another clearly. The KLM flight accelerated to initiate takeoff, while Pan Am Flight 1736 was still on the runway. The impact of the 2 planes colliding and the ensuing explosion and fireball killed everyone on board the KLM flight and the majority of those on board the Pan Am flight, except for the 61 who survived. With 583 lives lost, this accident is the deadliest to date. As terrible as these accidents are, just remember that, statistically speaking, you're still more likely to get yourself killed in the cab on the way to the airport rather than on the airplane itself. And if you ever need to save somebody's life, you should probably know how to perform CPR and first aid. Skillshare offers classes like How to Save a Life, Learn CPR and First Aid in 10 minutes, not to mention 20,000 others in categories like film production, animation, entrepreneurship, and more. With Skillshare, you can improve or learn almost any skill. Get 2 months free and support the Infographics show at the same time by going to Skillshare.com/infographics7 or clicking the link in the description. Join the millions of members already in their community in order to learn cutting-edge skills, network with peers, and discover new opportunities. So, have you been on a terrible flight lately that had you thinking it might be your last? Tell us about it in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other video called What If Ebola Infected the Whole World? Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time!